Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Horror. I am a huge horror fan, and of course I love board games with creepy themes. The big issue with horror board games is that while you can dress them up the part, it is actually very difficult to make them feel the part. It's not easy for a board game to convey terror, to needle you with a skin-crawling sense of unease that worms into your darkest thoughts, or to quicken your pulse as you are suddenly at risk of death. There is a level of disconnect when you are pushing around plastic miniatures, handling decks of cards, and rolling dice. But it can be done to a certain extent. Resident Evil 3, which was sent to the channel for review by Steamforged Games, has created some of the most tense and exciting games I have played for a long time. Of course, those games didn't scare me, but there have been moments of pulse-pounding action, edge-of-the-seat dice rolls, breathless all-or-nothing card flips, and despair. More than once I have sat with my head in my hands, looking at a shambling horde of the undead that is choking the doorway leading to my only escape, with an empty handgun and no reasonable expectation of surviving the night. The undead are relentless. Stand and fight and you will die. There is a sense of hopelessness as for each body that hits the ground, another springs up to pursue you. You feel the hopelessness as you barricade doors, only for the zombies to break through your defenses moments later. You desperately wrestle through crowds of ravenous enemies, and you panic as a corpse suddenly lurches into motion in the claustrophobic confines of narrow corridors. Occasionally, there are moments of calm, when a door is closed and you have a brief window of opportunity to heal up, reload your gun, and brace yourself for the next onslaught. But it never lasts, and you know sooner or later you are going to have to open that door again. In short, Resident Evil 3 does a really good job of creating the atmosphere of the video game. And it does it very simply and efficiently, by limiting ammunition to the point where you really only ever fire your gun when you absolutely have to, by making every dice roll nail-bitingly important, and by making enemies respond dynamically to every action you take so you can hurt them, lead them into traps, or isolate them in sections of the board you no longer need to access. The result is stress. You feel under pressure, you feel uncomfortable. This is not an action-adventure game. This is survival horror. Let's take a closer look. My first reaction to seeing the Resident Evil 3 box was honestly shock. I was surprised how slim it was. In recent months I have played Monster Hunter and Euthia from Steamforged Games, huge games in gigantic shelf-hogging boxes. Resident Evil 3 is a refreshing change. Sometimes it is nice to be able to add something to your collection without taking a trip to IKEA first. Sadly, my initial impressions on opening the box weren't the best. You are immediately presented with a paper insert that states this game contains scenes of explicit violence and gore. That I like. That is the classic warning from the video games, and I immediately felt at home. But then I realised that paper insert isn't just for flavour. On the reverse is the campaign map, an integral part of the game, used for tracking various decks, the threat level in the city, which locations you have cleared, which locations you have found, and which locations you can travel to next. And it's a piece of paper. I would have expected at least a thin piece of card, if not a proper sturdy board. Compounding my concerns was the darkness of the map tiles. I know that this was a complaint levelled at earlier Resident Evil board games, but I understood it had been addressed and resolved for Resident Evil 3. Maybe these are significantly better, but while the gloomy aesthetic does work for the nature of the game, the environments on the tiles are difficult to read. Unless I am really squinting, it's hard to make out details, and as you play you start considering only the shapes of the tiles. When you open a door to a small room, you aren't imagining that you are creeping into the local gun store or the side office of a police station. You are just entering a 2x2 board tile. There is a level of abstraction between the game components and the environment they present. In fact, when you are creating the maps presented in the scenario book, for the most part it doesn't even matter which tiles you use, as long as you use tiles of the correct shape. You may be playing an adventure in the rain-swept streets of Raccoon City, but it doesn't matter if you are suddenly in a hotel lobby. You may be in a clock tower, but it doesn't matter if you open a door to reveal an alleyway with a torched police car in it. All that matters is the shape of the space and where the doors are positioned. Speaking of doors, the tokens for those are also rather dark, and distinguishing them from barricaded archways is incredibly difficult. And that does matter. Doors can be opened and shut at will, as long as they aren't locked, while a barricaded archway can be broken down, but once that has happened, it will remain open for the rest of the game unless you can find a toolbox to fix it. I know that at one point there was a scenery pack available with plastic replacements for doors, archways, barricades and more, but to the best of my knowledge that is no longer in production, and it may be necessary to look elsewhere if you fancy upgrading any of the game's components now. Finally, the miniatures, representing 4 heroes, a horde of zombies, zombie dogs, some drained Deimos parasites, a gravedigger, and stage 1 and 2 versions of the Nemesis. In recent years, Steamforged Games have put out amazing miniatures across a wide range of products. Their Epic Encounters miniatures are superb, and their large-scale enemies in games like Monster Hunter and Elden Ring are breathtaking. In Resident Evil 3, the miniatures seem too small. This is intentional, and actually, the sizing of the bases is really clever. It's intuitive design that reinforces in-game rules. You can always tell how much space is available in a square because it's visually obvious. Each space will hold 4 small miniatures, 2 small miniatures and 1 medium miniature, 2 medium miniatures, or 1 large miniature. That is just good design. But it does mean the miniatures are small and a bit weedy looking. They're absolutely fine, but they aren't as detailed or impressive as miniatures from other Steamforged Games products, and some of the zombies do look like they're doing the thriller. Despite misgivings about the components, I was still excited to play, so I dived into the rules and things started to look much better. The rules are well formatted and clear, arranged in such a manner that you are presented with the most important information, then a training scenario, and then the more advanced rules that you will need to work through the campaign. There are plenty of diagrams and some great illustrations too. And reading through those rules, I was instantly engaged. This is a cooperative experience for 1 to 4 players, working together to complete missions while facing monstrous enemies controlled by a simple AI. The core gameplay is incredibly streamlined and accessible. It's almost HeroQuest levels of simplicity, and yet the scope is there for interesting choices, plenty of tension, and an intriguing campaign system. And if you don't have time for a full campaign, you can also play any of the adventures as one-shots. It's exactly the sort of thing I am looking for in a game. In the core set, there is a choice of 4 heroes, and while the game is playable true solo, controlling just 1 character, the heroes are simple enough that you could easily control 2, maybe even all 4, by yourself. Of course, Jill Valentine is here. She feels like the most powerful character and an essential pick, thanks to her ability to carry more items than anyone else, plus skills that allow her to avoid death and dodge out of the way of scrabbling zombies during combat. The other characters are Mikhail, slow but resilient, and voted most likely in his class to go out with a bang, Carlos, a resourceful combat expert, and Nikolai, who I have a bad feeling about. He's a supervisor with access to additional resources. Each character starts with 3 items, an ammo dial for tracking the ammunition in their starting handgun, and a health dashboard for tracking wounds. You will notice that the characters don't really have stats, only a value for how many dice they roll when dodging, and a value for how many items they can carry. This is a very clean design, and puts all of the characters on a similar footing. It's only their 2 unique abilities and the items in their possession that will affect what they can do during a game. Once players have selected characters, they need to pick a scenario to begin their adventure. The plot is simple, and obviously familiar to anyone who knows the franchise, as it closely follows the first part of the video game. STARS member Jill Valentine is trapped in Raccoon City during the zombie outbreak. She has to escape along with 3 members of Umbrella's biohazard countermeasure service team. To do this, she will need to explore downtown, uptown, the commercial district, and the Raccoon Police Department to find necessary items to fix the cable car. And as if that wasn't enough, there's the small matter of the nemesis that is chasing her. That thing isn't going to let her leave without a final showdown on the grounds of the city clock tower. If you are playing the campaign, you begin with access to 3 areas of the map. As you explore these areas, you will find access points that let you add new discovered locations to your city map. However, Many of the new areas are locked, so you will have to locate important items that you can use to access those new scenarios. For example, finding the police department isn't enough. You will also need the precinct key if you want to get inside. Having selected your scenario, you will need to use the map tiles to set up the playing area as shown in the scenario book. And this is torturous. Even though you rarely have to worry about the designs of the tiles you are using, it can still take an excessively long time to arrange them all, to find and place all of the correct tokens, and to set out the starting monsters. Additionally, you will need to create a special scenario item deck based on requirements in the scenario instructions. You may be asked to add more basic items into the basic items deck, and you may have to shuffle some new cards into the tension deck too. But having done that, you divide your player characters up evenly between the two designated starting points on the map, and any complaints just melt away. Because this game is exceptional. From the first turn of the first game, you are in it, totally engrossed, trapped in this horrific world where there are no easy choices. A player's turn is divided into 3 phases: action, reaction, and tension. In the action phase, a player can take 4 actions. They can take the same action multiple times if they want to. The most common actions are moving into an adjacent space, opening or closing a door, taking an item token from the space they are in, trading items with a character in their space or in an adjacent space, using an item in their inventory, or making an attack. Occasionally, they may get to take special actions such as using a typewriter or placing items in an item box. It's all very simple stuff, but there are hard choices baked into every action. Take attacking for example. Every character starts with a knife, which is terrible, and a handgun with 15 shots, which is only slightly less terrible. When you shoot your gun, you decrease your ammo dial by 1 point and then roll the dice listed on the weapon card. The starting handgun lets you roll 1 blue dice. Blue dice have 3 dodge symbols on them, which are classed as misses when you are attacking, 2 bullet symbols, and 1 hit symbol. If you roll a success, the symbols on the weapon card tell you what effect the attack has had. In the case of the handgun, if you roll the bullet symbol, you can push the target 1 space. If you roll the hit symbol, you inflict 1 wound. Yes, that means when you fire your handgun, you have a 1 in 6 chance of killing the target and a 2 in 6 chance of pushing it back 1 space. Fortunately, the handgun has the rapid fire symbol, which means you can expend up to 2 additional ammo, rolling 1 extra blue dice for each. This greatly increases your chances of killing the target or generating multiple pushbacks to grant you the necessary space to escape, but it sure does eat through bullets quickly. Of course, better weapons are more powerful. The assault rifle lets you roll a red dice instead of a blue dice. These red dice have 1 blank face, which is a miss, 2 faces with the bullet symbol, 2 faces with the hit symbol, and 1 face with the special target, which always counts as a hit but only does damage for certain weapons like the Magnum. In addition to rolling a red dice, the assault rifle also has an improved chance of taking down a target. Bullet symbols and hit symbols both inflict 1 damage, a whopping 66.6% chance of success. Interestingly, the assault rifle also has the rapid fire ability, allowing you to spend additional ammo to add blue dice to your roll. And that's really clever design in itself. If you take your time, aim carefully, and fire just a single shot, you roll 1 red dice, and every shot you take will have the best odds of success. But you are taking up a lot more time. Alternatively, you can spray and pray. For example, imagine you spend 3 actions to fire your assault rifle 3 times, using 1 bullet for each shot. That's 3 red dice, each with a 66.6% chance of inflicting a wound. After attacking, you only have 1 action left. Now, imagine you spend 1 action to rapid fire the assault rifle. You are still spending 3 bullets, but 1 dice has a 66.6% chance of inflicting a wound, while the other 2 only have a 50% chance of inflicting a wound. Your overall chance of scoring hits has decreased, and you are being more wasteful with your ammo. But the number of potential wounds you inflict with that single attack increases, and you still have 3 more actions afterwards. In the moment, you have to ask yourself what's more important, my actions or my ammo. Is it vitally important that I take down this target with a single attack because it's already breathing down my neck, or do I have the space to take more cautious shots? How much time do I realistically have? It's a constant balancing act as you try to make the most efficient use of incredibly limited resources. In that regard, the game brilliantly captures the feel of the survival horror genre. You are constantly presented with agonizing choices, and you never feel like you have enough of anything you need. You simply cannot rely on shooting your way to victory. Ammo is incredibly precious. At the start of each scenario, you are allowed to reload your handgun to the maximum 15 shots, but once you are in the scenario, you are relying on finding ammo boxes, each of which only contains 8 bullets. And if you start blasting off 3 rounds every time you attack, well, those bullets don't last long. And as for the other weapons you may find, the shotgun, the rifle, the awesome magnum, they hold less shots, and they rarely get free reloads between missions. You have to find the ammo during the game. Often you will want to kill a zombie, but you just can't. You don't have the bullets, or you know you need to save the precious limited ammo you still have. It's tempting to unload on zombies when they are closing in, hope upon hope for a kill shot, but wasting bullets isn't your only concern. Enemies in Resident Evil act dynamically. They respond to your actions. If you unsuccessfully attack an enemy that's in your space, that enemy will immediately make a free attack against you that cannot be evaded. Furthermore, each time you make an attack, successful or otherwise, the enemies on your tile and any linked tiles that weren't hit by the attack immediately make a move action. In this case, linked tiles are any tiles connected to your current tile by one or more open doors or archways. And yes, even enemies all the way across the board will react if you have foolishly left enough doors open to leave an unobstructed path to your current location. This is not the game for anybody born in a barn. Effectively, with each attack, the horde closes in. You may be able to hold some of them back for a while, but you can never hold all of them back forever. Sooner or later, you will have to run, and often you will need to run into the horde, forcing your way through the press of decomposing bodies. And that in itself is a problem, because if you want to perform any action other than attacking while there is an enemy in your space, you first must successfully evade an attack from that enemy. If multiple enemies are in your space, only the enemy with the highest threat level will attack, but the presence of the other enemies will make the attack harder to evade. You roll blue dice equal to your character's evade value, hoping to score evade symbols. The exact symbols you require depend on the level of the threat you are facing. Against a single small base enemy, any of the 3 evade symbols is a success. Against 2 small base enemies or a single medium base enemy, the large or dashed arrows are successes. Against 3 small base enemies or a small base enemy with a medium base enemy, only the large arrow is considered a success. Fail the roll and your action is wasted. You are stuck on the space wrestling with the enemies there. And to add insult to injury, or more accurately injury to insult, you suffer the effects of the attack, as indicated on the enemy's reference card. Any wounds are marked on your health tracker. On the plus side, whenever a character takes a hit from an enemy that's in their space, they are allowed to push that enemy into an adjacent space, giving the character an opportunity to escape, just like in the video game. It isn't even like running can guarantee your safety. Many areas on the map are designated as yellow, amber or red threat levels. The first time you enter one of these designated zones, you roll on a colour-coded chart to generate a random event. This is often the arrival of additional zombies, but it could also be that the door you just closed bursts open, or a fire breaks out in the corridor ahead. You may even encounter narrative events, which may be fixed based on the scenario or drawn randomly from a campaign deck. Sometimes those events spawn the nemesis, just so you have something else to worry about. Living in a zombie apocalypse really sucks. I mean, bites. And that is only what happens during a character's activation. Once a player has used all of their actions, there is a reaction phase. First, all of the enemies on the active character's tile or on a linked tile will attack if they have a character in range, prioritizing the current player if they have a choice. If multiple enemies are in range of a single character, only the enemy with the highest threat level will attack, but the presence of the other enemies will make the attack harder to dodge. Any enemies that aren't in attack range simply make a move action towards the closest character. Finally, there is a tension phase. The current player draws the top card from the tension deck and resolves it. At the start of the campaign, most of these cards will be green all clear cards, meaning nothing bad happens. But as you progress through the campaign, you gradually add more amber and red cards, which can cause all manner of unexpected hazards. Additionally, the coloured hazard bars at the bottom of the tension cards dictate when enemies can make special attacks. For example, if the most recently drawn tension card had a purple hazard bar, any zombie dogs activating forego their basic attack and will instead leap 3 spaces. An interesting aspect of the tension deck is that the bad cards get worse as the campaign progresses. Throughout your adventures, the threat tracker on the city map will rise. If it reaches the top, you lose the campaign. You have run out of time, the city is overrun, and you get nuked by Umbrella. But also, this threat tracker is divided into 3 sections that escalate the threat on tension cards. For example, the Tough Hide card states that for 1 round, any zombies killed are replaced with corpse tokens. If the threat has reached amber level, additionally for 1 round, zombies take 1 less damage than normal from attacks. If the threat level is in the red, for 1 round, zombies won't take damage at all. And in case that wasn't enough to worry about, the tension deck is also your scenario doom clock. If the deck runs out, you immediately fail the current mission. That doesn't mean the campaign is over, but it will cause the threat level to rapidly increase, and you will probably have to try the scenario again once you have regrouped. The only way to postpone this is to find a typewriter and use an ink ribbon. This lets you shuffle the discarded tension cards back into the tension deck, and you now have more time. Great. But also, those bad cards you have already dealt with are now back in the deck, and you may have to deal with them again. Honestly, this game really does stack on the misery. And I love it. Maybe I'm a sucker for punishment, but this is a beautiful trauma. I adore the tough decisions, the sense of hopelessness, those desperate knife fights in phone boxes as zombies swarm you. And I love the elation as you slam the door on your enemies, earning yourself a brief moment of respite. Every scenario offers something new to challenge you, and the campaign scales excellently as the threat level in the city increases and more unpleasant hazards are shuffled into the tension deck. Best of all, everything is so streamlined. The game is quick to learn and easy to teach. Turns move quickly, everything makes sense, there are no fiddly details to remember, you can totally immerse yourself in that glorious misery. The campaign in this core set goes as far as the clock tower, following an aborted attempt to escape by cable car, and I can see myself picking up the expansions to continue the adventure and to have some different characters to choose from. Overall, for me, despite some issues with the components, this game is a winner. 4 out of 5. Thank you to Steamforged Games for sending this game for review, and thank you for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.